The Skip Barber 2K World Cup goes to Donington Park Racing Circuit. It's the national variation of the layout, and drafting will probably be the highest it's ever been in this season. The track is only 1.96 miles, so one of the shorter circuits that are pretty well known internationally. 34 degrees Celsius is the track temperature, much higher than the temperature in the air at 18 degrees, 9 kilometers per hour wind, and a partly cloudy atmosphere. I'm Dylan Coyle alongside Jonathan Burke, a new name, and Arjuna Kankipati is doing some camera work. Well, Jonathan, introduce yourself for the lovely crowd on hand for this race.
Hello there, everyone. I am a iRacer for the past few years. I really love doing the road racing and the oval racing, and I'm excited for this first broadcast, Dylan. It looks like a really, really good race we have in our hands.
It certainly is a fun racetrack, and we're excited for you to be joining us here. This is officially the second half of the season. So, Jonathan, second half, you know what that means. That means that the championship hopes and the stresses, it'll continue to ramp up. Round 7, Donington Park, Phillip Island is in 2 weeks. We'll take a look at the championship standings. I believe this is only with one drop race included. At the end of the series, there will be 2 drop races in effect, which will obviously further shake up what we currently see on screen. But Christian Perez has a 12-point lead over Anthony Cat, with Thomas Simon a further point behind. And we see obviously some new drivers to the top 10, and Philip Hammer and George Matushinsky. But if we were trying to take a look at the championship standings with 2 drop races, the leader, well, it's still Christian Perez by a further margin over Thomas Simon. So things will continue to change and evolve as the season goes on. But, and I want to throw it over to you, Jonathan, this track, it's very unique. I know you don't have too much racing experience here. What should we expect to see from the Skip Barber vehicles today?
Well, the best passing zones are going to be going into the chicane and going into turn 1. Those are the heaviest braking zones, and they get all the way down into second gear. And then the south part of the track, it's all high-speed corners. The furthest down you go is third gear. Corner curves, old hairpin, Shankly's Bridge, McLean's. It's very, very low braking, a lot of lifting, making sure that back end does not kick out on you.
Yeah, it is a really tough track, and if you've ever raced some retro Formula 1 cars in any setting, in any simulator here, you know that it is a fast-paced track. It doesn't usually present too many passing opportunities through at least the first sector going into the second sector, and it's not like we have any hard braking zones. Probably the biggest braking zone is the chicane. That it would typically be a right-to-left chicane if we were talking about the Grand Prix circuit, but we're going into the left-right chicane, the Roberts chicane as they call it, and going right on to the Wheatcroft Straight. So we're following along with Gustavo Condi as he's close to completing that lap. As you see, he's about to head towards that left-right chicane. Again, usually they would be making a left here, but I'm a big fan of this layout that they're using. It's not going to add any extra burden of a hairpin, but I will say, Jonathan, this track, with all of the drafting and how the Skip Barber cars react, as Condi has a 1:18.7, puts him in 14th, it's going to lead to really a draft fest is what we're going to see.
Yeah, I think they're going to be very close together on the start, too, trying to get the best draft and get the best passing opportunities on the start. One thing I like to note, though, is that the pit window for this race is going to be very small. They were talking about 15 laps max is all you can go. So about lap 13 and 14 is when you're going to see guys peel off and fill up fuel. Only 40% fuel allowed in these cars, so there will be a pit stop.
There will be one pit stop in this race. It's a 27-lap affair. It was actually set to be a 29-lap affair, but because it was cutting it close, they changed it to 29 laps. Philippe Lebert did the man behind the 2K World Cup. So the expected pit stop range is lap 13 to 16. It's going to lead to some, I don't know, strategy, but undercut overcuts. We've seen a lot of them in the Skip Barber 2K World Cup. So what's coming up on your screen right now is the starting grid. Joe Osborne first on the grid. Martin Cruz, a championship contender as well, right behind him. And Christian Perez, P3. Carl Dronke, good for the New Jerseyan native to go into row number 2. Manuel Lachetta, 5th. Alexis Tapiavico, 6th. Simon Edwards, 7th. Victor, I'm not even going to try that one, is in 8th. Anthony Cat, Enzo Conta, George Machashinsky, Alejandro Liro starting in those rows. Philip Hammer, Gustavo Condi, Edwin Valerino, and we'll go through just 4 more before we run through the rest of the grid. It's McGowan, Daniel Forgarini, Jonathan Dance, and Diego Tomas Pereira. And Jonathan, as we continue running through this, just of note, Enzo Conta, it's actually a smaller grid than we're used to. Usually it's around 35 or so drivers. We went through it. But Enzo Conti, that is going to be, again, starting from pit lane. And the reason being, he does not have his safety points back up yet. But we're so close to starting this, Jonathan.
Yeah, and your Joe Osborne has been putting together a very quiet season. He sits 5th in points and has gotten very consistent finishes, and he needs a good breakout race, I think, to get in the championship fight. All right, all cars appear to be gridding. We should be underway shortly. Osborne again on the pole. Martin Cruz 2nd. He actually holds right now the top time trial time by a large margin, so he should be a huge favorite. And green flag is out. We're heading down into turn 1. Too wide right now, going into the corner. Osborne and Cruz side by side. Osborne looks like will hold the lead, and he'll get out in front. Cruz looking to try and make a move early. They're too wide behind him. Heading now downhill into the faster sections of the track. They're still too wide. They single file out in the first 3. Down through this S's and into the turn 4. A little bit of braking, a little bit of lifting. Ooh, the 342 almost gets clipped in the rear. They are so close to each other.
Yeah, but so far so good. Dylan Coyle unfortunately was having some technical issues. Dylan, are you back?
Does not appear yet. Looks like the battle for 4th heating up. Lucachetta over Dronke right now. They're still side by side though as they head into turn 7. Just look at the back ends of these cars, like, kick out every now and then. It's going to be a struggling battle to keep these cars in line. There might be a lot of mistakes made. So far, so good. Clean racing so far.
Yes, clean racing for sure as we're about to end lap 1. The qualifying top time was a 1:17.917 by the current leader, Joe Osborne. You get 6 bonus points for getting pole position, and every 3 laps you lead, well, that's another bonus point that goes on to your point standings as Osborne goes a little wide, comes into the apex late, trying to get the widest possible curve he can to get the most speed out of turn 1. We have some action, though, happening with Carl Dronke and Alexis Tapio-Vico. Vico gets the inside line there, but in this sharp right-hander, one of the slower turns on the circuit, he does not, and he almost gets tagged by Simon Edwards in the back, Jonathan.
Oh, they're so close to each other right now, and you can tell, like, that racing line is a very thin line. You don't want to be out of it, or else you're going to lose a lot of time in these high-speed corners.
We see, it almost looks like a little bit of a loose off exit there as Martin Cruz loses a much further positions. I think there might be an issue with his car. He is slowing down massively, and oh man, this is not good for the championship standings. Jonathan, what happened?
Does not appear to be any damage on the cars. Looks like he just lost it coming out of the high-speed corner. It is a shame. Again.
Oh, but he gets hit!
Oh, no, he got tagged!
Oh no, a massive accident, a massive crash. Martin Cruz is tied up in it. Alejandro Lira, one of the drivers, George Matushinsky, another, and that is some calamity in that chicane.
Just gets back to the throttle early. Martin gets loose and just collects 4 other cars. And those are all guys that are sitting in like the midfield in points. You do get a free fast repair, but it's going to cost him big in this race.
It's going to cost him so much in the championship standings. It means Christian Perez, although he's not going to have an easy time, it's going to be a lot easier. And Carl Dronke, oh no, he started in 4th place, and obviously he is now having some issues as we look at a replay. He was in P4 going into the lap and probably just gets loose here, Jonathan.
Yeah, you can see a big wiggle right there. He's following the 242, and back in comes out again, gets off a little bit, and yeah, there it goes. Yeah, it's so hard. The rear end just wants to kick out so much in these high-speed corners. You really gotta like focus and control it. And that 238 of Perez getting really racy.
Yeah, Christian Perez, one of those drivers you can always expect to be at the top of the field a week in, week out. However, he's pretty much used both drop races, so he's really going to have to be at the front of the field for the majority of the races. And Jonathan, he's been winning a lot. It's pretty much for Christian Perez, they're a podium or top 5 finish, or he's just not even scoring enough to even think of him as a championship contender.
Yeah, but there's been a good amount of people up here too. Anthony Catt and Thomas Simon have been up there competing with him, and they're not far behind in terms of point value. So, you know, one little mistake by Perez could cost him dearly. But how about Luca Chetta? He's doing well right now, sitting in 3rd, has not hit a top 5 yet this season.
Yeah, Lucetta, he is a driver who is always on the cusp of a great race, just is never able to exactly get the job done. But Manuel Lucetta, who's currently in P3, has a huge gap behind him to Simon Edwards. 3.2 seconds the last time they crossed the line as they go through the Robert chicane, and we'll see exactly what the difference is as they cross the line. Again, Edwards gets a little wide into the dirt coming out of there, but he gets a lot of speed. He's wrapped up in this battle, though, with Alexis Tapiovico, and that gap is now 3.5 seconds. So the top 3, they are running away with this one early on.
Yeah, Vico, Cat, Ginjaro, Valera, and Dance are all in that group behind them, and they're like jacking around for position. So the more and more they keep fighting, the more and more these top 3 are going to check out on the field.
And we see all through the hills there, currently going through the old hairpin. This track, it is legendary. Right now going through Starkey's Bridge, the Schwann's Curve, up to McLean's. This corner, I know you were talking about it, Jonathan. This corner is one of the more harrowing corners, I guess you could say.
We got a big accident towards the rear of the field.
Major accident. Who's involved? We'll have to see the number on that car, but a lot of parts flying around in the grass area, Jonathan, and it's not going to look good. I think it might have been Ronan Griffin. I'm not sure. Yes, it is.
It's like Carl Dronke was involved in that as well. Griffin gets a little loose out of there, and oh, there's just a big stack up at the front over here. Someone's airborne.
That was a massive accident, and we saw that driver go airborne and flip over a few times. I couldn't quite see who it was, but we'll see here. Oh man, you see, once those tires touch and you just get a little sideways into the gravel and the grass, if those tires grab into the ground, then obviously you're going to be flying away, and that's exactly what happened. As we're on board with Christian Perez still holding calmly in 2nd. Again, the one thing we've talked about and we've seen somewhat in this season is that drivers, they really utilize the draft. They'll sacrifice a few points if they're in 2nd place for the advantageous nature of saving that's fuel. Saving fuel in the draft is a massive help for all of these vehicles. And Perez, who is not taken first at all, is going to watch his Osborne, as long as he gets this final chicane right, will get 2 bonus points so far on top of the 6 bonus points from the pole. So the most points that you can get in this race after this event, as Perez gets a much better exit out of the chicane, might make a run down into turn 1, red gate.
Slow car coming out of the pit lane as well. That might give Perez a bit of an advantage.
It totally will give an advantage once they catch up there, unless Perez is unable to get by and Osborne does. But maximum amount of points you can get from this one event. 9 points, 9 bonus points from 27 laps led won't happen. 6 bonus points from the pole position and 50 from a win. Now, we saw it earlier in the season, the lone oval on the calendar, which was just a mess when it came to drivers who are typically road racers racing on ovals. But that race gave out the most bonus points, and I never thought it was quite the way that it should have been done, but if you are a good oval racer, it's going to give you a much better advantage throughout the rest of the season. I mean, around 80 or 90 laps, and you get a possibility of 30 or so bonus points from laps led. It's crazy.
It's certainly interesting, and I think it entices people who may not be as strong on these road courses, who have a bit of oval strength, to do well. And something I want to note here, the past lap, Osborne has been getting like very, very close to the edge of the track, and Perez has been very, very neat as we look back here at 4th through 6th.
Both of their last laps were the exact same, but Manuel Lucetta, his last lap, he went purple. 1:17.17, the quickest in the race so far. So Lucetta has the advantage of that double draft. It'll save him even more fuel. So I do wonder, will he possibly go for the overcut? I'm not sure, because the undercut typically seems to be the best case scenario. But as we've seen at some tracks like Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, the overcut can be the best possible situation, as we see a whole horde of drivers drifting around, as Daniele Forgarini is currently embroiled in a three-car battle. It looks like Philip Hammer, Jonathan Dance that is, and Gustavo Condi are the 2 other cars right there, as Condi just drifts around that corner heading towards Coppice. And God, it's so fun watching these cars just try to teeter on the edge of control, and they do a really good job at it.
Yeah, Dance pulled off a brilliant move to move up into the top 10, but he's got that rear wing damage. I don't know how much that's going to affect handling, especially in these lower speed corners.
Just watch this view. We'll get a really nice listen on what the cars are doing here in terms of shifting.
Dance is looking. He's looking to maybe make a move down into 1 here.
Doesn't look like he's going to be able to get it done. It's really hard to make moves when it's not there's not a slow corner coming up. That's why probably the hairpin on the Grand Prix circuit is light, because it's a heavy braking zone and you can get a move done easily in there. On the national circuit, it's just about getting the best draft possible, and if you can get the best draft possible coming out of one of the slower curves and get a very nice run, then that's obviously giving you the best chance of success to make a pass. Now, we've talked about Enzo Canta having to go through some very heavy penalties literally every race this season as a move is done through with that corner. A nice one there, and it looked like Dance will get it done, but he'll have to really defend Forgarini in the slipstream into the Robert chicane. Who's going to let up first? You know it's going to have to be Dance. As hard braking for Forgarini is what wins him the position.
Oh, and he goes wide.
He goes very wide, but he keeps it and he holds the position. I don't think it's going to be held for much longer if Dance is able to get the speed on the outside, but he goes way too wide. I think he's going to try and get the switchback momentum there.
Yeah, he got really, really close on the previous lap, right on the gearbox going through that section. So maybe he's got a really good car down there. As you see Edwards and Vico going toe-to-toe.
Some really great battles. They're happening in clumps here. And I was talking about Enzo Canta, and I'll continue what I was saying about Canta. He is the probably the driver in this series that his points total does not reflect where he is actually starting the race and what his driving ability is now. All the drivers have penalty point systems where you have to have at least 40 penalty points to remain in battle for the next race weekend. However, every race weekend you are below that cutoff for whatever reason, and you have to go in a drive-through penalty at the end of lap 1, which obviously is detrimental to any chance of a race win. Now, the one thing there is that every clean race will earn you a few points back. So I believe this, as long as Canta does not have any bad driving in this race today, as long as he stays clean, as long as he's not getting into any incidents, then I believe this is the final race that he will have to worry about any sort of drive-through penalty in the next race. But if it's not this race, it's the next race. He's very close nonetheless.
And it doesn't mean he's not going to be a factor, because he's right in front of our leaders here, and he, could be caught pretty quickly. Now, will the leaders pass him or just sit behind him for that draft is up to them. Ooh, a little loose
Perez
there.
It looks like we've got, there was a little bit of an off-track endeavor in the back, but we'll look at Perez trying to make a move down the inside in the chicane. Will he make it stick? He bounces over the sausage curb, goes for the switchback maneuver. Not going to be able to make it work, but the guy who this helped more than anyone, it's Manuel Lucena, who gets a great run, but Perez goes down the outside of Osborne. I don't think he's going to make it work into Redgate. He's staying right there. Will they touch? It's close. The tires, they're just inches apart, but they're still side by side. What great racing from Perez. They almost touch. They might have gotten a little bit there, getting inside position, getting very low in the curbs, still side by side. This is some fantastic racing here in the mid stage of this Donington Park race. They're still side by side. This left-handed kink going uphill to the left-hand side. Manuel Lucena, will he make it 3 wide? He does. He's got his tire down the inside. Will he make a move down the inside of Perez? He does. They're still side by side. Just let it watch right now.
Perez right out of the corner. I think that's going to give Lucena second position right here as he clears him. And now he's got Osborne right in his sights. Lucena could be in a catbird seat here right behind Osborne when pit stops come out.
Some great driving, and after it looked like Christian Perez was going to be the driver getting the most positions out of all that, he actually has a -1. Osborne holds that position still, but one of the rarer things that we're dealing with in this 2K World Cup season, as we look at all the positions gained, everyone except Malakis and 18th have gained positions in the top 17. But when we're talking about the 2K World Cup schedule, with Donington Park's national circuit being under 2 miles, there will be a lot more traffic than we are typically used to in this. Even though it's a 25-car field, it's going to end up being very painful for some of the drivers here. And with a driver in the championship hunt like Martin Cruz being out of the race, score 10 laps down, there's nothing he can do to gain any points from this. You've got to complete I think it's 80% of the race distance to score points, and he obviously will not be one of those drivers doing exactly that. But Joe Osborne, he's dealing with Manuel Lucena in the slipstream as they're catching up to these back markers. Enzo Canta is the first one that they'll have to deal with before moving on to Rob Adams, and then Alejandro Liro. All of them were collected in an earlier incident, but as we
First
see
one down
that,
pit lane.
And that's true. Pit stops are going to be starting right now at the end of lap 13. Anthony Cat. So Cat was running pretty calmly in 5th place, and he's going to go for an undercut. He is very smart with his pit strategy. We'll see if this one plays for him.
And I think like if this is a big strategy play, he needs to pull it. He hasn't won since early in Spa, and he's second in points, but I'm sure like he's dying to get back on top.
Yes, he is definitely one of those drivers that will. He is one of those drivers that you can kind of expect to be one of the top drivers in this field. Anthony Cat, he was at the top of the championship talks for pretty much the entirety of the first half of the season. And if we're talking about not necessarily a dark horse candidate, but he's a candidate that can rise up and surprise a few drivers. Now, we did have Simon Edwards go into the pits, I believe, at the end of that lap as well. Yes, because he's right behind Anthony Cat, as we see on the live shot right now. So he and Cat will try to work together in the slipstream as we see more drivers going into the pits.
That's
Joe Osborne. Yes, Joe Osborne and Manuel Lucetta. Christian Perez, who is in the slipstream, he's going to try and get some laps in clean air. Not sure exactly how much time he will gain on this lap. We'll have to see on our timing. But Osborne, the leader, in the pits at the end of lap 14.
And a bunch of these big middle groups in Dance, Cord, Hammer, they're all coming in at roughly the same time. And the leaders both leave at the same time. Luca Jedi, I think, has gotten in front of Osborne.
Well, that is a massive move if Lucetta does it, and he absolutely got in front of Joe Osborne. That's a pretty big move there. Sometimes races are won in the pits, and although this is in the virtual world, the theory still reigns supreme as we see the gap between Cat and Osborne 6 seconds. So I think what Anthony Cat was hoping for there was that the leaders would spend a few more laps trying to battle and do a bit of a overcut so Cat could then gain with an advantage there coming out of the pits. Obviously, that did not work. So he was 1 second quicker in the pit stops, and as we're seeing on the track map, that's Christian Perez, who is currently in the pits. So he has just now stopped. He's getting service, getting some fuel in the car. That pit stop, it's currently at 8 seconds in pit lane. So we'll have to see exactly what happens here as they go through the chicane. He's coming out of the pits now. He might have the position still on the pit limiter, and he is back out on the track, but will he have the speed to stay out in front? He most absolutely will by pretty much a second there. Osborne spent 16.5 seconds in pit lane. Perez, 14.5 seconds. That's a 2 second difference.
And his last lap, too, was also a second faster than his two rivals, so he was able to put like a big gap right now. But he's by himself, so I don't know if the draft is going to come into play as Osborne and Lucetta are right next to each other.
Pretty remarkable the amount of time that was a difference in those pits. As we see the live graphics, 2.1 seconds. That is the difference between Christian Perez and Joe Osborne. And again, it's just a Perez masterclass right here. I don't think he's going to be able to hold out in front for long without the slipstream. However, a lot of that depends on Osborne and Lucetta, and if they decide to fight each other. There's still a little bit under half this race to go, and we really can see some good results coming from both Lucetta and Osborne. But as Manuel Lucetta was able to get in front of Osborne out of the pits, look where Lucetta is again. He's back in P3 and with Osborne right in front of him.
Well, I think the key here, too, is that Perez went slightly longer, so he's going to have a little bit more fuel, and it might make a difference towards the end of this race if, say, these two run low on fuel.
Yeah, will, and a little, I feel like the fuel is not going to be an issue. I think the only place where fuel becomes a question of how much and how much fuel you put in and how much time you put in is when you're in the pit stops. If you go for an overcut, then you will not spend as much time in the pits getting the amount of fuel necessary to last until the end of the race here. So pretty smart by both of them. Now both Lucetta and Osborne get way into the dirt right to the left of the curbing, but they're starting to ever so slightly, I think, catch up to Perez. They're working together. They're not racing side by side, Jonathan.
Now, Lucetta's taking his time, just peeking out when he gets close to Osborne, and Osborne is just trying to get as close to Perez as possible. We'll see when they come across the line how close he is. Sliding through the chicane is Lucetta, getting every bit of speed he can.
So the gap this time around, it went 15 hundredths down from Osborne to Perez. So that's the difference now. I don't know if there's really that much time left for a gap to be closed down. If we're only talking about 15 hundredths a second, I do think this lap will be a much quicker one for Osborne, as we saw right there with that 0.161 second difference on that lap. I think you just come down to the clean air, where the draft is coming from. The fact that Lucetta is not hurting Osborne's trek to the front is actually helping Lucetta right now, because if I am Manuel Lucetta and I want to be in this championship hunt for real, as a real contender, I will not settle for a third place finish, and I will not allow Christian Perez to continue storming out in front. Even second place finishes really are not going to do too much for Lucetta. He's really got to get in the first and really keep Perez from these first place end of race scenarios, as Osborne gets really, really wide, and that's going to absolutely hurt his time. Simon Edwards in a horde of drivers in the back as Lucetta's looking down the outside. Lots of action happening in this race. Simon Edwards, it's a 4-driver battle as a back marker passes down the right. They pass him down the inside and into Red Gate. Edwards on the outside position. They almost touch, but both of them stay on track. It's going to be Anthony Catt who is on the inside now, but only for a very small amount of time, as this sharp left-hander will give the position to Simon Edwards. And again, some great racing. We've seen respectful, hard, and fair racing through this race so far, Jonathan.
It's been very clean and very close, especially among the top few guys. And the person who's winning right now, I think it's Vico, who's sitting in 4th, as these two are fighting behind him. Stu Edwards looks on the inside. He's getting very, very racing. He wants to go try and chase down the leaders.
That is fantastic, and apologies for any name mispronunciations. Manuel Lucetta, it's Manuel Lucetta. That is how you pronounce that name. I know we've been saying it differently through the entirety of this series, but it is hard when you don't see the guys in person and they're just drivers in the virtual world. So, but thank you for that pronunciation styling error that we did have. But nonetheless, Perez is 2.095 seconds in front, and Perez got very wide on the exit of Redgate right, going into that turn 2 section of Hollywood. I'd love to see what that looked like again, because it looked like Perez was not even just a normal Skip Barber sideways, but very sideways, too much so for a race car. But it looks like that gap is still holding pretty steady right now. Gotta wonder, with 8 laps, 7.5 laps to go, what will the situation be like? When will Osborne and Lucetta look to race each other, then race with each other?
I think the key here is also going to be the lap traffic. You have the 82 of Nero and the 211 of McGowan, who were both involved in some of those early calamities that are right ahead of Perez. They could be big factors come later in the race.
Pretty fantastic seeing how all of these drivers are racing here. And again, Christian Perez gets very wide, goes through the grass on the exit of the chicane. So 2 mistakes for Perez. Will it affect that timing? Yes, it does. 1.85 seconds at the time they went through the line. You see the live timing showing on your screen, 1.833. And if it continues falling like that, almost 0.15 seconds per lap, it's not going to be enough by the end of this race. Something else has to be done. And Manuel Lucetta, he looks a little racier than he did just a lap or 2 previously. I feel like, with 7 laps left, if they're still within a 2-second range when it comes down to 2 laps to go, 3 laps to go, that's when you start to think about fighting each other for P2. Right now, there still is time, and there are 2 back markers coming into Christian Perez's racing line.
And they've been seeing like Perez go off, especially at the chicane. He's trying to hold as much speed down that long straight as possible. So I think maybe Lucetta's just buying his time at the moment. And if they can't close this gap, then he's going to try and go for that second position.
The gap between the top three and Alexius Tapiovico as Osborne goes way off track out of the chicane. He gained some speed there, and that is a questionable endeavor, one that if we had a live stewarding system, we would have to look at again, but he was able to keep some time going there. He definitely had a heart in his mouth moment, though.
And both him and Lucetta had a bit of a moment there because Lucetta was right behind him as he went sideways, and any closer they would have had some major contact.
That was quite scary, and right now we've got 33 viewers on the iRacing Esports Network. Again, my name is Dylan Coyle, joined alongside Jonathan Burke with Arjuna Kankipati in the camera studio, the production booth. We thank you all for your continued support of the 2K World Cup and RaceSpot TV broadcast. If you ever have any questions or comments, please put it in the YouTube chat, like the Manuel Lucetta name change. I know myself, I will always be looking down there to try and get any sorts of audience interaction that we possibly can as we're riding on board with Lucetta. Bounces over the sausage curb once, twice. Osborne gets a little bit wide the exit, and this is another lap that they're not catching up to Christian Perez. The difference is back to 2.1 seconds, and it's even growing further. So I feel like at this point, Jonathan, unless there is a mistake, maybe, just maybe, start thinking about passing. If you're Manuel Lucetta, start thinking about passing Osborne for P2, and maybe you've got the speed. Maybe Lucetta has the speed to catch up to Perez, because it looks like Osborne is just driving incredibly erratic right now as Perez goes through some back markers. We'll see how much time that actually ends up costing them.
Hey, Lucetta on the last lap was actually peeling out and looking in the chicane for an opportunity. He knows Osborne is getting loose coming out of these corners. He can see the opportunities there, and as Perez is going further and further off in the distance, it might just be this big fight for second place right now.
I think it definitely will be, as we see a car going all the way wide to the right. I think that's another back marker. Of course it is. That's we'll have to take a look there. It might have been Enzo Canto, who's had a pretty disappointing race, currently showing a lap down. Alexius Tapiovico has a lot of work to deal with right now. There's an unbelievable battle going on for the first position outside the podium. Tapiovico will have to deal with being in the middle of 3 wide here. Anthony Cat on the inside, Simon Edwards on the outside. Vico just lets it go, and sliding all the way to the outside was Anthony Cat. Simon Edwards, though, will hold the position, but he is not clear of Cat. He most certainly will, though, because this left-hander right here is so helpful if you're on the left-handed side and have inside positioning.
The two Brits stormed right around him, and Vico was just in a rock and a hard place, really nowhere for him to go. He'd been sitting pretty in 4th place, and now he's looking at the back of both of them.
He absolutely is, and by the way, the Osborne-Perez gap still 2 seconds, and Perez actually, and I'm not sure if my eyes are just deceiving me here, but it looked like Perez is a lot closer. Osborne's a lot closer to Perez this time around. I wonder if there was a bit of an off. It's 1.5 seconds now. Well, I wonder if it was the back markers keeping up with the time, but I'd say if you're under 1.5 seconds with 3 laps to go, just see what happens. There's one more back marker that will absolutely take away some of the speed that Perez can have when he's trying to pass. So we'll see exactly what happens as there's another attempt down the inside. Edwards has the positioning on the inside of Anthony Cat, but let's see if Cat can still stay within a tire of Edwards, and he's able to do it. Has inside position on this left-hander, but but he is not able to clear. And it looks like Simon Edwards will go down the inside. I'm not sure he's clear either. Both drivers, some unbelievable driving, and they almost touch. Anthony Cat again on the inside. The great thing about Donington Park is that you can go side by side for a while through these left and right-handers. They're quick, but they're typically not sharp enough where you're going to have to cut out of your endeavor so quickly. As almost getting cut off and touched was Anthony Cat, as Simon Edwards holds on to position number 4. But Christian Perez on the front stretch. 2 laps to go when he crosses the line, and Manuel Luqueta is going down the outside of Osborne into turn 1. It's Redgate. We'll see what the move will be. I don't think Osborne's going to try.
Last of the late breakers right here, Osborne.
Last of the late breakers. Osborne looked like he was letting go as Perez watches a back marker just let him go by. 3 wide for a moment with the back marker. Osborne, Luqueta, side by side still as they go through these curves. The old hairpin right here, still side by side. Osborne loses the position. Well, Luqueta back into P2 with a lap and a half left in this race.
The Italian put a great move on him, and he was hanging on tough, Osborne, going into 1. He was trying his best. They got 1 more lap, and there's 1 more big, long straight for Osborne to get another run.
And looking back in the field, Anthony Cat has overtaken Simon Edwards with 1 more possible try down the front straight. That is what we're currently looking at here. It's always interesting to be a TV director when there's a battle behind P1 as Osborne looks to make a dive down in the chicane on Luqueta, is unable to do so, but the switchback will lead to him with a lot more momentum. 1 lap to go as they cross the line here. The TV director, what will you choose, Arjuna? They contact! Osborne flips, and that is a huge disaster on the final lap. Osborne, Luqueta come together, and that is horrific.
It is in the middle of the racing line too, so Cat, Edwards, and Vico are going to have to avoid that, but what a shame for Osborne and Luqueta. It looked like Osborne had enough room on the outside. I didn't even get a better angle on that one.
I would point that down, and this is just my preliminary findings. I think that Manuel Luqueta will have some penalty points at 1 because he was the one that kind of drove inside, I believe, but we'll have to take another look at it. He's very close to Christian Perez right now. If we had another lap, this might have been an interesting battle at P1, or if he was able to make a move earlier in the race. Under a second at 8/10, will we see the most remarkable late dive into the chicane? I don't think so, but so much speed.
Close after the contact. Oh, Perez is loose going in. Does he have enough speed coming out to hold it? Yes, he does.
My word, I really wish we had another lap to see that battle, but it's Christian Perez who wins round 7 and further cements his place as the championship leader. Anthony Cat crosses the line for the podium. It's P3. Simon Edwards is going very slowly. I think he ran out of fuel. Simon Edwards ran out of fuel.
Oh, here comes Dance, here comes Dance.
Oh, man.
He's at the line.
Simon Edwards currently positioned in P6, I believe. And, wow.
Oh, we got a crash. Looks like Gustavo Conde has gone way off.
And, well, he's going to reverse it. And not that well of a 180. He has a wheel loose. He's going to try and crawl his way over the line. Neil Kemp is coming right behind. Will he make it? And it looks like he's going to, just losing a few positions into P14. That last lap was ridiculous.
Oh, and he was on the outside of, it looks like Dance, and just collided with him. There's not enough space there, not enough room for those 2 Dance partners.
What happened in the final lap there? That was, okay, that was ridiculous, but nonetheless, we're going to take a look at the final results here. Christian Perez gets the win only by a half second over Manuel Luqueta. Anthony Cat, remarkably 9 seconds behind, will get the final spot on the podium. Second, further back, it's Alexis Tapiovico, with Jonathan Dance getting into the top 5, 11 seconds off the pace. Simon Edwards ran out of fuel at the very end and finished with 21 seconds down in 6th place. Danielle Fuggerini in 7th, Philip Hammer 8th, Edwin Villarano in 9th, and Danielle Camarari is in 10th. Diego Thomas Pereira, Paul Malakis, Ronan Griffin, Gustavo Condi, and Neil Kemp are the 16 drivers on the lead lap. A lap down, Joe Osborne, unfortunate. Oh, so unfortunate for Osborne.
It was a heartbreaker. He had a pole. He was leading a ton of laps early.
That was so disappointing for him. Chris McGowan finishes 18th, Enzo Canta 19th, Alejandro Liro 20th. A few more drivers to go through here. Probably Rob Adams, Carl Dronke, Hans Ura, George Machashinsky, Martin Cruz round out the 25. Probably the most heartbreaking end to a race I can think of this season, with Joe Osborne holding the lead for pretty much the entirety of the, or holding second for the entirety of the race, even being in first before the pit stops, and it doesn't end that way. Christian Perez is your winner here, and I will say, Jonathan, we really appreciate you being on this broadcast with us. We look forward to a lot more Jonathan Burke showings and sightings on Race Spot TV broadcasts in the future.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be watching this intense action. If this race promises anything, I'm in for a treat the rest of the season.
Well, it was quite the race to be a part of. Donington Park, the national circuit. It provided so much excitement. Thank you to everyone watching on the iRacing Sports Network. Join us in 2 weeks. We go to Phillip Island, and that will be a unique track as well. Then we go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve 2 weeks after that. Then we take another 3-week break before going into the final stretch of the season with 3 races over 6 weeks. The season finale, Watkins Glen. Then we have Interlagos. We have Lime Rock Park. This will be such an awesome end to the calendar. 5 races left. That is all that separates us from crowning a Season 15 champion of the 2K World Cup. Thank you so much for joining us here on Race Spot TV. We've had quite the time bringing the action to you. I'm Dylan Coyle. Follow me on social media at Dylan R. Coyle. Jonathan Burke alongside me, Arjuna Kankipati in the production booth. Thank you so much for your audience, and it was a fun one. We'll be back in 2 weeks.